So tell us, have you got any stories or examples of how things have been cleared generationally?
Sure. I've cleared a lot of generational things from my family. What comes to mind is I used to have a really weird phobia. Speaking of phobias, I mentioned that earlier. Taxidermied animals, the deer heads. I used to never be able to go into a sporting goods store, a steakhouse, anything like that that had animal heads on the wall. Now it doesn't bother me. Now I can. I'm vegetarian, so I don't go into steakhouses and things like that a lot. But occasionally, I'm in a restaurant that has deer heads, and yeah, no problem anymore. That was a weird phobia, and I discovered that, probably in my teenage years, that anytime I was in a store or restaurant, I would get almost like a panic attack. I suppose that's what a panic attack is. Sweating, my palms would get sweaty, my heart would race. I felt like I was about to pass out. I'd have to just slowly back out the door. I was terrified. And I thought, what a strange thing. And my mother would say, that is the silliest thing to be afraid of. And I know. And when I started doing energy work, it occurred to me one day, this isn't even my terror. This isn't my thing. I'm pretty sure this is something I've inherited. Somebody somewhere in my lineage had some terrible frightening thing with an animal. Or an animal head, I don't know. And so I cleared that for myself, and it went back a ways on my father's side. Never had another problem with it since. And I also, what's cool about this story is, you know how I said when you clear something, it releases that flawed thread, so backwards, sideways, forward. I had a cousin who also had the same phobia, unbeknownst to me. Her father worked in a sporting goods store where there were deer heads all around the walls. And she used to take lunch into him once in a while. And she said, I could never go in there. She told me this about a year later. She said, I have this weirdest fear of animal heads. I'm like, really? Or she said, well, I used to. And I said, well, in what way? How did that show up for you? And she says, well, my dad worked at the sporting goods store, so when I take lunch to him, I couldn't ever go in. I'd just hand it to one of the guys through the back door, and they'd take it to him. And I said, so what happened? She said, I don't know. Just one day, I went in about a year ago. I went in to take him lunch, and I looked up at the deer heads and went, those aren't so scary. There's just no charge on it for me anymore. And she says, I went in and handed my dad his lunch, and I thought, that's pretty cool. These don't scare me anymore. I wonder why I was afraid of them. And what's funny about that story is I knew exactly the day that I was working on that because I was traveling, and I remembered when it was. And when she said, it was about a year ago, because she remembered what month it was when she had gone in. And I said, I cleared some energy on our grandpa's side about that. And she's like, wow, that's so cool. Because neither of us had ever met anybody else before with such a strange phobia. There may be people listening to this that say, hey, I have one of those. Call me, we'll clear it. It's probably generational. I know that's a weird phobia, but that's one that I knew that it was gone when it was cleared, once it was cleaned up. Money stuff, I've done a lot of money things for my side of the family and my husband's side of the family, and it's just made a difference. It wasn't like a physical reaction that we went, wow, this day we had it, and this day it was cleared, and everything's great. It was just gradually and subtly over time, things began to flow a little easier, and money began to flow to us easily, and it's just you get rid of those things that are tethering you, that those old beliefs, because when you have a belief on something positive or negative, you emit a signal, and people may not be aware because it's so subconscious. So even if you're not aware of it, it does not mean that you're not sending out a signal on that. And especially finances, you can repel or attract to you just depending on the vibrational resonance of what you're putting out. Same with relationships, finances, anything that you want to attract or repel, it comes from within. How are you feeling on that? What are your belief systems on that?